Hey guys, this is part 6 of our series on Spring Boot application. We have reached the final step. Now we need to test our Spring Boot microservice using Postman. While testing the application, we will also check about the exceptions that we were discussing in part 4. Let us jump into the application directly. Let me open Postman. Let us now test the REST endpoints one by one. Let me have my Postman and Spring tool suite side by side. Okay, this is my product controller. Let us first start by adding the product to the database. So the HTTP method is post. Let me add the URL. It is http://localhost:8081. The port number is 8081 because in our case, Postman is running locally in my system and the application is running internally in a Docker environment. So let me add the URL. Because Postman is running locally in my system and our Spring microservice is running internally inside the Docker environment. Let me add the URL product-api/v1/products. Select body, raw. The type should be JSON. And let me add the product object. Within curly braces, within quotes, add the product data in JSON format. First one is product ID. It should be of type string. Let me add all the properties. In case of category, it is of type array. So within square bracket, we need to pass the values. Kids, sports. The last property is features. Features is an object by itself. So you need to pass the data within curly braces. Features has two properties, color and material. I also missed one more property, price. In case of Java, the property is price. In case of MongoDB, the field name is cost. Now I have added the properties. Let me click send. Let me maximize Postman. Let me move this up. We are getting the status as 201 created. In case of post method, we are not returning any data in the body part of the response. The return type is void. Okay. So the status code we have got and we don't have any headers also. Fine. Similar to this, let me add two more records in the database. Let me change the product ID to A002 ball bat. Let me give the color as black. And change the brand also and click send. 201 created. Next A003 mobile, brand is Samsung. Click send. Okay, now I have added 4 records to the database. Let us try the next method, get. Select get, click send. Let me maximize the response part. You can notice I have received all the 4 records from the database. In case of get all, we have also passed some headers. So this is the get all method. The header name is info getting all products. Let us check it out. Select headers, info getting all products. Fine. Now before jumping into the next method, we will check whether all these changes are reflecting in the database. Let me use the command show databases. Training DB is created. Use training DB. Show collections. Product is there. db.product.find. Okay. You can see all the records that are added to the database. The ID is of type string and it represents the primary key. In case of this features field, if you notice, in terms of Java, it is a separate class with its own properties. But in case of MongoDB, it is a part of every individual document. Then you can also notice what is the mapping that is happening between the class and this particular document. So the class name is com.productapp.model.product. I have given cost same for each and every field. Now let us try to update the cost for one particular product. So we will move on to the next method, put, for updating. In case of put also, you need to send the data using the body part of the request. The product ID is mandatory and Let me change the price of TV. Click send. See the status code, it is 202 accepted. In case of put also, we are not sending any return type in the body part of the request, and of course we don't have the headers also. This is my put mapping. Response entity dot accepted. For accepted, the status code is 202 accepted. And let us check whether that particular document is updated. So for that, let us use getById method. So the HTTP method is get product ID slash pass the ID A004. Click send. Status is 200 OK. In the headers, getting one product by ID. ID is A004. In the body part, we are retrieving one product, that is one document by ID. And let us see the price. The price is updated. So we have tested add product, update product, getting all products, get by ID. Now let us try get products by brand. So the URL is product slash brand slash Samsung because we are using path variable. The HTTP method is get. You don't have to bother about the body part. It will not take the body part. Click send. For Samsung, we need to get two products. Of course, I am getting both the products. So our get by brand is working perfectly fine. Next, let us try get by category. Let me add the URL. The URL is product slash category slash. Because this has to be in the form of an array, you need to give the values comma separated. Kids, comma sports. Click send. I am getting the first two documents, bat and ball. Products by category is over. Next, let us try for products by color. In this case, it is request param. So you need to create the query string all by yourself. Let us add that. Product slash color question mark. Color equal to black. When you are using query string, if you notice, in case of params, you are getting a green dot. It means the value is getting added automatically. Suppose say if I want to change it, I can change it from here also. Instead of black, I can give white. So if you are very comfortable adding query string all by yourself, you can do it in the URL itself, or else you can go and add the key value pair from the params tab. Suppose if I want to add one more also, say for example material. If you are going to do it from the URL, you need to add ampersand material equal to some value. But now if I am adding it here, automatically it will append material some URL. Like this. Now in our case we don't have it. So let me just remove this. And remove the tick mark also, or else you will get that ampersand. Click send. I am having only one product having the features color as white. Okay. This is for request param. The next one is get by brand and price less than. In our case, we are having all the properties with the same price. That is okay, fine. Let me add the URL. Product slash brand slash Samsung slash price slash 2000. For this particular URL, I am having only two products which belong to the brand Samsung. And in case of price, we have updated the price of TV. So I need to get only one product. Let us check it out. Click send. I am getting only one product. Okay. So we have tested all the methods except delete by ID. To test that, let me change the HTTP method to delete. The URL is product slash product ID slash the value. Let me delete the product with the ID A004. Click send. The product with this ID is deleted. In this case also, we are not sending any response in the body part. The status is 202 accepted. Let us check it out. So this is delete mapping. Now let me check the list of products. It is slash products. Send. I need to get only 3 products. Ball, bat and mobile. Now all our REST APIs are working perfectly fine. Let us move on to test the exceptions that may occur in a REST API. For this, let me open global exception handler. The first exception that we are going to test is handle HTTP request method not supported. So for this, let me use the URL get by ID. Product ID /A003. Let me change the HTTP method from get to post. In this case, it has to throw me an exception. Click send. Now I have got the API errors object. The status code is 405. The error message is request method post not supported. This is coming from the exception class. HTTP request method not supported. Let me click on this. You will see the error message. Request method post is not supported. And the status value is method not allowed. Okay. Now we will move on to the next exception. HTTP media type not supported exception. So for this, we need to use the method post. The URL is still products. In the body part, we need to provide the product details. But this time, instead of selecting JSON, let us select text. This should throw an exception. Click send. The exception is unsupported media type exception. We have got the API errors object. The status code is 415. The status value is unsupported media type. It is expecting JSON, but we are passing a text value. HTTP media type not supported exception is handled. And the message that you are getting is coming from this place. Content type text/plain is not supported. That is the message you are getting. We will move on to the next exception. Missing path variable exception. When this missing path variable exception will occur, let me open product controller. In product controller, let us take one method, get by brand. Here, the path variable name that we have given is brand. If the path variable name does not match the parameter name of the method, then we will get missing path variable exception. Suppose say, here I have given path variable name as BR. It is not matching the parameter name in the method. In this case, it will throw an exception. There are scenarios where they want to give a different name. If you want to retrieve the value of this path variable, then you can use that particular name within the parenthesis like this. But usually, people don't prefer to give a different name within the parenthesis. They try to map the path variable name with the parameter name. In this case, we cannot test this method. The reason being, our path variable name is same as that of the parameter name. It will not throw any exception. So what we will do is, we will check out all the exceptions. Then after that, we will modify this code. Then create the jar file. Then rerun the Docker compose YAML file and test the application. Okay. Now let me show you this. The HTTP method is get. What I am expecting is product/brand/Samsung. It should not give me any exception. Here I want to get an exception. But here the path variable name is same as that of the parameter name. So I will not get any exception. Click send. I have got the proper output. So this exception we will check out later. Missing servlet request parameter exception. When this missing servlet request parameter exception will occur? In the product controller, for this, let us consider the method which is taking request param as parameter. In this case, the variable name within the request param is color or the parameter name is color. If this parameter doesn't match the form field name, then we will get missing servlet request parameter exception. I will repeat, if the form field name or the attribute name that is coming in the query string doesn't match the parameter name or the request param value name, then we will get an exception. So we will try this. Product API /product/color $COL. I am giving a different name equal to white. Enter. I am expecting an exception. This is my output. If you notice, the exception is thrown, but it is not handled by our global exception handler, but it is directly thrown to the client. This is usually the message that we get when we are not handling the exception by ourselves. Let us open the command prompt and see that. If you notice, the exception is thrown to the console. Resolved. What is the exception? Missing servlet request parameter exception. Required request parameter color for method parameter is not present. So there is some error in our code. So we will test this exception also once we have completed all the other ones. Let me go back to Postman. So these two exceptions, missing path variable exception and missing servlet request parameter exception, we will try it out later. The next exception that I want to try is type mismatch exception. This will occur if you are passing a string instead of a number. To test this exception, let us use this method. Product/brand/price. So the URL will look something like product/brand/Samsung/price/ instead of giving a number, let me give a string. This exception is handled properly and we are getting the API errors object. Notice the timestamp, the status code and the error message. The error message is nothing but number format exception only. Internally, your type mismatch exception is handling number format exception only. The status code is bad request. Okay. So we have seen all the inbuilt exceptions. Now we will move on to our own user-defined exception, product not found exception and invalid ID exception. So first let us start with product not found exception. So for that, let me use the same method product/brand/sam. I am expecting an API errors object that is returned by product not found exception. Let me press enter. So if you notice, I have got the status code as 204 no content that we have given. And of course, we are having a header. Let me click on the headers. I am getting product with this brand not available. But what about the body part? I am not getting any API errors object. Let us go back to the console and check this. I am not getting any messages either here. So we will test this method also later. The last exception that I want to test is invalid ID exception. We will try it out. So it is products API/product ID/A100. Okay, this one is working perfectly fine. See the status code, it is 406 that we have given, not acceptable, the status value. And the error message is invalid ID. This is the error message that is coming from our product service IMPL. This is the error message. This also is working perfectly fine. So now we need to check for missing request parameter exception. So now we need to check for our product not found exception, then missing servlet request parameter exception and missing path variable exception. So now for doing this, let us modify the code. Let me first go to the product controller. In the product controller, I want to test missing path variable exception. So here I will just give the variable name as BR, which is not matching with the parameter name. Okay, so this is done. The next one is missing servlet request parameter exception. In case of missing servlet request parameter exception, I feel the error message that I have got is over here. Let me remove the headers for this missing path variable, and for this I am trying to add a new header. I assume because of this header only I am not getting the error message properly. It is thrown to the console. That's what we have seen, right? So let me show you that error message also again. In the command prompt, let me scroll up to the top. See the error message. It is throwing unsupported operation exception. When an exception occurs, automatically it is coming to our global exception handler. From there, it is calling this handle missing servlet request parameter exception, which we have got in our global exception handler. From there, it is calling the handle missing servlet request parameter exception. In which line the exception has occurred? In line number 63. Let me go back to the code. So here in line number 63, see, this is the place. So this is the place where the exception is occurring. It means that you are not supposed to add extra header. So I have commented this line for missing servlet request parameter exception and also for missing path variable exception. Now this is done. The next one is in case of product not found exception, I am not getting the API errors object back. So what I feel is in product not found exception, I got the serial version ID. So let me comment the serial version ID. I feel maybe due to this I am not getting the exception, and also in the global exception handler, I have got the HTTP status code as no content. Let me change it to not acceptable. Just similar to the invalid ID exception method. Let me save this. All the changes that are needed for my application is done. Now we need to create the jar file again. Select your project, right click, run as Maven build. This time we need to remove the existing jar files and create a new one. So use the goal as clean space package. The existing jars will be removed and the new ones will be created. Yeah, the jar file is created. Let me refresh the target folder and let us rename the file. Refactor, rename. It has to be product api.jar. Click OK. Now let me minimize this. We need to do certain changes in the Docker part. Let me open the command prompt. The command prompt, let me just give Ctrl+C. The container is stopped. CLS. Let us see both the active and inactive containers. Docker container ps-a. We have got two containers which are stopped. We have done the modification only in the REST API. So let us remove this particular container. We don't have to modify the MongoDB container. Docker container, remove. The container name is product-api. Done. Let us check the Docker images. In case of Docker images, we got two images. I don't want to touch the Mongo image. I just want to remove the Spring Product API image. So the command is Docker image, because we have modified only our application. Remove the image ID. The spelling is wrong. Okay, it is done. Now all set. Let us rerun the docker compose command. Docker compose up. The application is deployed and the container is started successfully. Now let us go back to Postman. Let us test the methods one by one. So first one is product/brand/Samsung. This time I need to get missing path variable exception. We are getting the exception. The status code is 500. The status is internal server error, and see the error message. Let me just show it to you from here. In the global exception handler, in missing path variable exception, let me click on the class. Please scroll down. Required URI template variable. Required URI template variable brand for method parameter type. This is the error message that we are getting. And what is the status value? It is internal server error and the status code is 500. What you can do is, if you do not want to throw the status code 500 to the client, you can convert it into a user defined error message and send it back. That also is perfectly fine. I don't want to show the status code as 500 means you can modify it and you can send it back. Okay. Now the next one is missing servlet request parameter exception. So for that we used color $all equal to white. I have given a different property name instead of the name that was available in the request param annotation. So this time I am getting the proper API errors object. The status code is 400 the error message is required request parameter color is not present. Whatever you have seen in the console is now coming over here. So last time when we ran the application, this error message was thrown to the console because we were trying to add our own headers to the HTTP headers object. So this missing servlet request parameter exception is also working perfectly fine. The next one is product not found exception. So for that, let me check in for the method. I cannot use this, so I need to go in for category. Product slash category slash, I am supposed to give the category that doesn't exist, slash k. Now we are getting the exception. 406 not acceptable. We have got the timestamp, the status code, and also the error message. Product with this category not available. This is coming from the product service IMPL. And the status value is not acceptable. Okay. So we have tested all our REST APIs. All the REST APIs are working perfectly fine. We have also tested what are all the possible exceptions that may occur and how the exceptions are handled, and they are returned as an API errors object to decline. That also we have discussed. So here ends our video series on Spring Boot. If you like this video series and if you want to learn more, stay tuned. Thank you.